Hello and welcome to episode number 4 of the Joe Cannon Health Podcast. I am Joe Cannon and today is going to be a popular topic. It is cannabidiol, CBD. CBD is a product that people have been asking me to talk about for a while, and while I do cover it in some of the seminars I give, I haven't talked about it at length. And one of the reasons for that is in the past, CBD didn't have a lot of research behind it. And I wasn't even sure if it was legal or not. But things are changing, and I think there's enough research out there now on CBD that I can talk about it. And hopefully in this podcast, I will answer some of your questions, but also hopefully raise some questions as well, especially if you're considering taking a CBD product for whatever ails you. So first up, I want to talk about a little bit of background information to help you understand this better. For one thing, what does CBD stand for? Well, CBD stands for cannabidiol. Cannabidiol. Now, cannabidiol is one of many compounds in marijuana as well as hemp. These compounds are called collectively cannabinoids. Cannabinoids. And they're just plant nutrients, plant chemical compounds that have a variety of effects in the body. Now, I mentioned plant on purpose because if you investigate this, you will probably see it called by another name, phytocannabinoid. Phytocannabinoid just refers to plants. Phyto, the prefix phyto, refers to plants. So phytocannabinoid, CBD, cannabinoids, they all basically mean the same thing. And cannabidiol is CBD. Cannabidiol or CBD is a specific type of cannabinoid in the marijuana plant as well as the hemp plant. Now, while CBD gets a lot of attention these days, it's good to realize that, like all plant compounds, this is not the only one out there. There are over 100 different types of cannabinoids that have been isolated so far. You are probably familiar with THC, the stuff in pot that gets people high. That's a cannabinoid. And CBD is another type of cannabinoid. Again, there's a lot of others out there. Most of the cannabinoids begin with the letter C, such as CBD, CBN, CBH, CBL, CBV. You get the point. There's a bunch of them, and they have a variety of effects in the body that we're only now just starting to understand. And I think that's actually kind of interesting because CBD has been around for decades. It was isolated in the late 1930s, early 1940s. But because of legal issues, it's been illegal to study it, at least widely so, for a long time. That all kind of changed in 2018 with the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill, which essentially made hemp and CBD legal. Well, kind of. If you ask, is CBD legal, I can only tell you that it is complicated. You'd think it was legal because of all the CBD products that are out there. However, it may not be as legal as most people think. I think eventually that's probably going to change, but the legality of hemp and CBD I still think is on the fence right now. It's probably going to be legal. I mean, my goodness, they're legalizing marijuana in different states. It's only a matter of time, I think, before CBD gets that same classification. But for right now, it's complicated if it's legal or not, but still you find it in gummies and different products, supplements, etc. So there's a lot of products out there. Now, having said that, the FDA does state that CBD is not a dietary supplement. So even though you may think it's a supplement, they don't classify it as such. And I kind of understand why that is, because we don't eat hemp as a rule. It's not a staple of our diet, and that's something that's in the rule of dietary supplements. It has to be something we commonly eat. Since we don't commonly eat hemp or we don't commonly eat marijuana, it's not a dietary supplement. The other reason why it's not a supplement is that CBD has been investigated as a pharmaceutical drug, and supplements can't be drugs. So there's two reasons why CBD is technically not a dietary supplement. Okay, so where does cannabidiol, CBD, come from? So as I alluded to, there are two different sources. You can obtain CBD from either marijuana or hemp. Now, both marijuana and hemp both come from the same plant, the Cannabis sativus plant. There are two different types of the same plant. But CBD is usually going to be harvested from hemp. Hemp is legal. Marijuana, depending on what state you live in, may not be legal. So again, hemp is going to be the source of most CBD products you find in stores. Now, if you're searching for a CBD product, I think it's good to ask what part of the hemp plant they're getting the CBD from. Generally, CBD is going to come from either the flowering or budding parts of the plant or the leaves of the plant. In other words, there's no CBD going to be in the stems, and that's important. So if you're thinking about a CBD product for yourself, if it comes from the stems, it's not really going to have any CBD, and you can bypass that product. Another reason why CBD comes from hemp is that hemp does not contain a lot of THC. Now, one thing to keep in your mind when you take a CBD product is that it is fat soluble. So don't be taking CBD products on an empty stomach, otherwise you may not absorb it very well. It's always good to take CBD orally with food, specifically some food that has some fat. This will dramatically increase the absorption of the CBD product. Now, people sometimes confuse CBD with hemp oil, CBD oil or hemp oil. They're not technically the same thing. So if you're looking for a CBD product and you see hemp oil, you are probably getting the wrong product. And one of the reasons why I say this is that generally hemp oil does not contain appreciable amounts of CBD unless the company is adding it in as part of their processing. Generally speaking, as in its natural state, hemp oil doesn't have any CBD to speak of. Now, while I call it hemp oil, it's sometimes called hemp seed oil. And again, that's a reference to the fact that it comes from the seeds of the hemp plant. Remember that CBD usually comes from the flowering parts of the plant or the leaves. Hemp oil comes from the seeds, and there's no CBD in the seeds to speak of. But that doesn't mean that hemp oil doesn't do anything, because hemp oil does contain other cannabinoids. Remember, there are multiple cannabinoids out there. CBD is just one of them. So hemp oil is going to have different types of cannabinoids, as well as plant chemicals called terpenes and omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 fatty acids. And it's quite possible these other compounds have different effects in the body. But as for how hemp oil stacks up against CBD oil, we need more research to know the answer to this question. Okay, so let's talk about some of the research on CBD. Currently, most of the research involves epilepsy. There is evidence that CBD can reduce seizures in certain types of epilepsy. In fact, there's actually a CBD-based medication that has been just approved by the FDA in 2019. And that's why most of the evidence so far on CBD involves epileptic seizures. As for other health issues, there is some research on them, but it's less than for epilepsy. For instance, there's some evidence that CBD may help certain aspects of Parkinson's disease. For instance, it may help people with Parkinson's disease sleep better, and it may help their mood, but it unfortunately so far does not appear to help any of the movement issues, the spasticity, for instance, it's characteristic of Parkinson's disease. Another area that has been getting some attention is anxiety issues and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Various reports do hint that CBD may help reduce anxiety levels in people and perhaps even help those with PTSD symptoms. One of the studies I saw in preparation for this episode, researchers looked at 72 people with anxiety or sleep problems, and after a month of just taking CBD, 79% of them reported that they had less anxiety, and 66% of those individuals said they were actually sleeping better. So that's pretty interesting. What's also interesting is that it only took a month for these benefits to kick in. Preliminary evidence also suggests that CBD may have a role in managing arthritis pain, but I think it's too soon to tell. There is some research out there that it may help knee pain. associated with osteoarthritis, the most common type of arthritis, and perhaps maybe even rheumatoid arthritis as well. But generally the studies are small and there's not a whole bunch of them yet, so it's hard to say how effective it might be. Most of the studies are pretty small, such as one study I noticed involved 12 women. They were given a hemp oil which was enriched with CBD, and 8 of them said their pain levels were reduced. And while that's good, again, 12 people in a study, and that's not a whole lot. I'd like to see studies of 100 people, for instance. And I'm sure eventually those studies will be coming out. But as for right now, it's hard to say how effective it might be. I think if CBD does help arthritis pain, I think it might be dependent on the degree of arthritis, if you have a mild case versus a more severe case, for instance, and perhaps maybe even the duration of how long you've had arthritis and what kind of damage has been done by the arthritic condition. Related to arthritis, it's possible that CBD may reduce inflammation. There is some evidence of this. And since CBD can be absorbed by the skin, that's a reason why you may see it in sports creams and arthritis creams, etc. Again, how effective it is, it's hard to say. One study I found involved 13 people, and those investigators noted that CBD did not reduce the pain associated with exercise. We technically call that delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS for short. And in this study, CBD did not reduce the pain felt after exercise. Now, speaking of exercise, is it possible that CBD products may help you run faster, jump higher, lift heavier weights, or recover faster from intense exercise? I'm not sure at this point, but the writing on the wall says it may not. And I say that because in January of 2019, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, removed CBD from its list of banned substances. Now, my guess is they removed CBD from their banned substances list because they determined that CBD did not give athletes any kind of advantage on or off the playing field, so to speak. In 2017, there was a report that was published called Cannabis, Exercise Performance and Sport, a Systematic Review. Those researchers were looking at THC, not actually CBD, but they did notice that the studies to date showed THC did not enhance aerobic exercise performance or improve muscle strength. That said, I'm hard-pressed to find research on exercising humans and CBD, so I'm not sure what effect it might have, but again, the fact that WADA has removed it from its banned list of substances says there may not be much going on here. That said, if you are drug tested, I do recommend that you inquire if CBD would red flag you on a drug test, just to be safe. Just because WADA is not prohibiting it any longer does not necessarily mean CBD may not cause you to red flag on a drug test or urinalysis. So always make sure if you're taking these products and you're subject to drug testing. So how about blood pressure? Is it possible that CBD may reduce hypertension? Well, again, like all things CBD these days, not a lot of research out there. However, there is some writing on the wall that CBD may help reduce blood pressure. One study that came out in 2017 involved 9 healthy guys who were given 600 milligrams of either CBD or a placebo, and they noted that the CBD lowered blood pressure by about 6 points. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that CBD is a treatment for high blood pressure, because in this investigation, everybody had normal, healthy blood pressure. And it's quite possible that CBD may have less of an effect to people who have hypertension. Again, we just don't have a lot of data yet to know if it works or not works. As an aside, there are other ways to lower blood pressure naturally than CBD. If you go to my Supplement Clarity website, I listed 13 different ways to lower blood pressure. For instance, take a look at hibiscus tea and flaxseed. There is research on them. Okay, so how does CBD work? And to that question, I'd say, good question. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure anybody is aware of how CBD works in the body. Originally, it was thought that it might work with the endocannabinoid system. Endocannabinoid system is basically refers to our internally produced cannabinoids. And again, we do make some of these things ourselves. Originally, it was thought that the CBD latched onto the receptors of the endocannabinoid system. These days, however, that thought is kind of falling to the wayside. Currently, one mechanism is that CBD may help us utilize our naturally occurring endocannabinoids better. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of unknowns with this, so let's wait for future research. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about side effects of CBD. This is something that I don't think people talk a lot about. You hear, oh, it's natural, it doesn't get you high, that's great, that's wonderful, but does it have any side effects? Well, the writing on the wall says it might, depending on who you are. Overall, I think the study shows CBD is pretty well tolerated, and in healthy people, probably not a lot of serious side effects popping up, but there have been some side effects that have been reported, such as diarrhea, decreased appetite, fever, feelings of being tired. Some people even report vomiting after taking CBD products. Again, these are probably rare side effects, but things to keep in the back of your mind if you're going to take a CBD product. And again, all the more reason to start with less than is normally recommended, maybe for the first week, just to see how you respond. If you're getting your blood tested, I think it's wise to tell your doctor you're taking CBD, because some reports have noted elevated liver enzymes after taking CBD products. Sometimes this happens when people take a lot of CBD, but just to be safe, talk to your doctor, say, hey, I'm taking CBD, so they can interpret those liver enzymes accordingly. I think it's wise to keep your doctor and pharmacist in the loop about your CBD intake is if you take any kind of prescription medication. The reason for this is that there's some evidence that CBD can interfere with an enzyme complex called P450. Okay, P450 is an enzyme complex that's involved in drug metabolism. It helps us break down medications we take. And a lot of medications do involve the P450 enzyme system. Now, if you say P450 to any doctor, pharmacist, nurse, chiropractor, odds are they'll know exactly what you're talking about, because it's a quite popular metabolic pathway for drugs to be broken down. A lot of medications utilize the P450 system. Sometimes, perhaps, maybe some drugs may not be broken down fast enough, while other times medications may be broken down too quickly, either of which can be a problem. So it's always good to keep your physician and pharmacist involved with the CBD products you're taking, especially if you're taking any medications. Now, earlier I mentioned that the bulk of the research to date is on epilepsy, specifically CBD helping reduce epileptic seizures. And I think this is something to keep in the back of the mind for people who are also taking seizure medications. In theory, there may be an interaction between the epileptic medications and CBD that maybe you take. I would say the same thing as well with Parkinson's disease. While CBD may help certain aspects of the disorder, it may make some other aspects not so good anymore, and there may be an interaction with Parkinson's medications. Again, it's good to cover your bases and talk to your doctor or pharmacist if you have medical conditions or you're taking medicines for those conditions. Now, recall that some people report feeling tired after taking CBD products, and if that is the case, then it stands to reason that driving while taking CBD may not be a wise decision. Also, some states may restrict CBD use while driving, so when in doubt, maybe you don't do it. One medical condition that I don't think gets enough attention is tinnitus, also called tinnitus. Whatever name you call it by, it's basically ringing in the ears. This is an issue that I deal with myself. I've had tinnitus for several years now, and I can tell you that it is not a fun thing to have. Now, I know some have asked me if CBD could help their tinnitus. And for right now, I'm going to say no, don't do it. And the reason for that is there is some preliminary evidence that tinnitus may be made worse by CBD. The research is not yet on humans, it's rather on laboratory animals, and that research appears to show that CBD makes tinnitus worse. Now, I'm the first to tell you that laboratory animal research and human research is not always going to yield the same results, but given that tinnitus is something that can really impact your daily life, until we know more stuff about how CBD interacts with ringing in the ears, I wouldn't take the chance on it. Anybody who has tinnitus will tell you how sometimes maddening that constant ringing in your ear can be. Now, the last potential side effect that I will bring up is the question as to whether CBD can be habit forming. Can you, for instance, get hooked on CBD? Remember that CBD is not the same thing as THC, and so that's why some people may say, no, you cannot get hooked on CBD. And while on the surface that does make some sense, there has been some preliminary research with humans noting that when you give them a lot of CBD, that it might be habit forming. Again, lower doses probably won't do this, and perhaps maybe even in those not prone to addiction, it may not have a addictive property either. Again, it all comes down to we just need better research. Okay, so you've investigated CBD and you've said to yourself, this is for me, I want to try it. How do you find a quality CBD product? I think for now that may be harder than you think. And I say that because there have been some studies that have arisen which raise some red flags. For example, in 2017, there was a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. These researchers tested 84 different CBD products, and these products came from 31 different companies. Their findings were pretty disheartening. For example, they noted that only 26 of these 84 products were accurately labeled. The worst of the bunch were the CBD vapes. Yeah, you can vape this stuff. In contrast, the CBD oils were the most accurately labeled, so you can have the most faith, according to this study, in the CBD oils and the least faith in the vaping products. Overall, 26 of the products tested had less CBD than their labels indicated. Some products actually had no CBD in them, and 18 of the products tested had enough THC to get people high. Remember, CBD comes from hemp, which is very low in THC. So where are they getting their CBD from? Another investigation came out in 2018, also raised some red flags. In this investigation, researchers tested 14 different CBD products, and 9 out of the 14 contained different amounts of CBD than their labels indicated. Now, if you're thinking this might just be a US issue, I'd say you're probably incorrect. Researchers at the International Cannabis and Cannabinoid Institute in the Czech Republic, yeah, that's a real thing, they tested 29 different CBD products, and they noted that 69% of them tested higher than they should for polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs. What are PCBs? Well, they're carcinogens. PCBs are found in plastics and other materials, and they are thought to be a carcinogen, a cancer-causing agent. Other lines of research suggest they are hormone disruptors. They may interfere with testosterone and estrogen and maybe thyroid hormones. How the heck are PCBs getting in cannabidiol products? Well, one thing, it makes me wonder where they're growing the plants in. What's that soil look like? Again, studies like this, I think, are telling because they highlight the fact that currently the CBD world is essentially the wild, wild west. You have companies out there which are trying to capitalize on the popularity of CBD, and perhaps they cut corners when they put their product out. So based on that, you really have to investigate who you do business with. I would be cautious of buying products you see advertised on billboards, on highways, or products that just show up out of nowhere on your social media feeds, because you don't know who these companies are. You have to do your research. Now, that said, there are some ways to help ensure you're getting a quality CBD product. One thing I would suggest is if you're going to buy a product, look on the label, the back label and the front label, and look specifically for CBD. Quality products should tell you the dosage of CBD it contains. If you see words like hemp extract or cannabinoids or contains a proprietary blend, well, these may be signs that the products have other cannabinoids other than CBD in them. Now, these other cannabinoids may have beneficial effects, but if you're looking for CBD, you want to know how much CBD is in the product. So that's what you should be looking for. Quality products will tell you the dosage of CBD for serving. For example, a product may say it has 10 milligrams per serving. Another thing that could help ensure a quality product is to ask the company to see their certificates of analysis. A certificate of analysis is a report from a third-party company that tested the product, and the certificate analysis ensures that the product has the dosage that the label states. Some companies will even list their certificate analyses on their websites, and if you call them, they'll be happy to share them with you. I think doing your homework by asking questions like these is going to help ensure you get a quality product. Okay, so we covered a lot of stuff in this episode. If you have any questions about CBD, feel free to drop me an email at either of my websites, supplementclarity.com or joe-cannon.com, joe-cannon.com, and I'll be glad to help you. And that brings us to our closing quote of the day, which comes from Confucius, who said, "It does not matter how slowly you go, so long as you do not stop." Until next time, guys, I'm Joe Cannon. Go out and make a difference.